The chamber of the Galactic Council had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations for 3,000 years. Its walls, constructed from compressed starlight and quantum-locked matter, had absorbed the desperate pleas of dying species and the triumphant declarations of conquerors. Today, it would hear something new: willing submission. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the defendant's circle, a platform that descended from the chamber's vaulted ceiling on anti-gravity tethers. Around her, arranged in concentric rings rising toward the darkness above, sat the representatives of 247 species. But only 5 voices truly mattered, and they spoke now with the weight of ages. Lord Kethris of the Valorian Dominion leaned forward, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light into cutting shards of color. His species had conquered 40 systems before the Council existed, and he wore that history like armor. Humanity has been granted membership in this council for 15 standard years, Kethris began, his voice resonating through translation matrices into every language simultaneously. In that time, your species has established 127 colonies. You consume resources at rates that exceed species 3 times your population. Your historical records show 6,000 years of continuous warfare among your own kind. Elena's expression remained neutral. She had studied Kethris for months, knew that he measured other species' worth by their ability to show either strength or deference. Anything between those extremes he considered weakness. The Council has therefore prepared the Human Compliance Directive, Kethris continued. A holographic document materialized in the air, its terms scrolling in precise, legal language. Your military fleet will be reduced to 50 system defense vessels, confined to Sol system. No human vessel may carry weapons beyond mining lasers rated below Class 3 output. All colonies will submit to quarterly inspections. Human ships require Council transit permits for intersystem travel. Violation results in immediate expulsion and total economic embargo. The terms were designed to humiliate. Elena could see it in the postures of the other elder species representatives. The Tekresh delegation, insected beings who communicated through pheromone clouds, released molecules of satisfaction. The Mindari Observer, a collective intelligence housed in a tank of luminescent fluid, pulsed with what Elena's translation software rendered as approval tinged with amusement. 3 dozen younger species shifted uncomfortably. They remembered their own submissions, the careful balance of pride swallowed and dignity preserved. They waited to see how humanity would negotiate, what concessions Earth would demand in exchange for compliance. Elena took a single breath, her heartbeat steady. 15 years ago, when Earth had first received the invitation to join the galactic community, she had been a naval intelligence officer analyzing alien tactical capabilities. She understood what Kethris wanted: either defiance he could crush, or negotiation he could control. She gave him neither. Earth accepts these terms without reservation, Elena said clearly. We will begin immediate compliance. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of translation matrices seemed to pause. Kethris's crystalline face couldn't express surprise, but his body language showed it. He had prepared for days of negotiation. You have no amendments to propose, Kethris asked carefully. None, Elena replied. When would you like the decommissioning of our military vessels to begin? Kethris recovered quickly. Within 90 standard days. The first inspection teams will arrive at your colonies in 120 days. We'll be ready. Elena bowed slightly, the gesture perfectly calibrated to show respect without subservience. Is there anything else the Council requires? There wasn't. The session adjourned with an efficiency that felt wrong to everyone present. Younger species delegates approached Elena afterward, offering quiet words of solidarity, assuming Earth had some plan, some hidden strategy. Elena told them all the same thing: we believe in following the rules. 3 years later, compliance was complete. Earth's proud naval fleet, vessels that had pushed humanity to the stars, were decommissioned in ceremonies broadcast across the galaxy. Weapons manufacturing facilities were publicly converted to civilian production. Inspection teams visited human colonies quarterly and found exactly what they expected: mining equipment, agricultural machinery, construction tools, and trading vessels. No weapons, no military infrastructure, no hidden bases. The elder species were satisfied. Humanity had been defanged. But some observers noticed troubling patterns. Human colonies continued expanding exponentially, now numbering over 200 settlements. Human trade vessels were everywhere, their presence so common that ports grew accustomed to their angular, efficient designs. And despite being completely unarmed as verified by multiple inspections, human merchants never fell victim to the raiders and pirates that plagued other species' trade routes. War Master Drekken of the Kryn Marauders noticed most of all. The Kryn had plagued the galaxy for centuries, a loose confederation of pirates and raiders who controlled 30 systems through fear and overwhelming force. They paid no taxes to the Council, recognized no laws but strength, and survived because hunting them across the vastness of space cost more than the Council was willing to spend. Drekken had built his reputation by reading prey correctly. He knew when species were genuinely dangerous and when they merely appeared so. Humans, he concluded after studying intelligence reports, were ripe for exploitation, wealthy from their rapid expansion, neutered by Council restrictions, and lacking the natural defenses of dangerous species like the Shellek's poison biology or the Quarren's psionic attacks. It was time to remind the galaxy why protection had value. New Horizon colony on Kepler 442f was perfect. A breadbasket world, its fertile plains feeding a dozen nearby systems. Population of 45,000, mostly agricultural workers and their families. Defenses, none permitted by Council law. The settlement sprawled across the planet's largest continent, domes and habitation modules connected by transit tubes, surrounded by endless fields of engineered crops. Drekken's fleet arrived in overwhelming force. 200 warships, more than enough to conquer most minor civilizations. They dropped out of FTL at the system's edge, their arrival detectable by every sensor in the colony. Standard procedure: give them time to panic to understand their helplessness. The colony's response came within minutes. Governor Marcus Chen requested a meeting to discuss terms. His tone was polite, almost cordial. Drekken found this interesting. Most species greeted Kryn arrival with terror or desperate defiance. Chen sounded like he was scheduling a business meeting. Still, protocols existed for a reason. Drekken agreed to land with an escort and discuss the colony's surrender. The governor's residence was a modest structure near the colony's administrative center. Chen met Drekken at the entrance personally, a man in his 60s with gray hair and the calloused hands of someone who'd actually worked the fields. He offered refreshments, gestured Drekken to a seat with the ease of a host welcoming an expected guest. "Your fleet is impressive," Chen said, pouring something that smelled vaguely like the human beverage called tea. 200 ships, that's significant force. Drekken studied the human. Where was the fear, the anger? Chen's vitals, measured by Drekken's scanner, showed elevated heart rate but nothing approaching panic. The governor seemed prepared. "My terms are simple," Drekken said, dispensing with pleasantries. "All colony assets transferred to Kryn control. Your people will be transported to labor markets in the outer reach. Those with specialized skills may negotiate better placements. Resistance means death. You have 1 hour to organize the transfer." Chen nodded slowly as if considering a reasonable business proposition. "I appreciate you following protocol. Most raiders just start shooting. The warning is considerate." Drekken's mandibles clicked in irritation. This wasn't the response he expected. Chen continued, his tone shifting subtly. Something colder entered his voice. "I'm required to inform you that you've made a Category 1 error under human civilian defense protocols. You have 4 minutes to withdraw your forces beyond the system's heliopause." "What protocols?" Drekken laughed, the sound harsh in the small room. "Humans don't have a military anymore. The Council saw to that." 3 minutes, 40 seconds, Chen said, checking a device on his wrist. Drekken stood, his patience exhausted. This human was either insane or stupid. "Your defiance is noted. My ships will now demonstrate the cost of 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Drekken activated his communicator. All ships begin bombardment of infrastructure targets. Show them we're serious. Through the residence's windows, Drekken watched his ship's weapons light the sky. Precision strikes against power generation facilities, communications towers, the water processing plant. Standard intimidation. Enough to scare, not enough to destroy value. Chen watched too, his expression unreadable. I did try to warn you. Then everything changed. The human cargo hauler in orbit, a vessel that had passed 3 separate council inspections in the past year, suddenly transformed. Its hull didn't explode or breach. It unfolded. Cargo container sections separated along seams invisible to standard sensors, each segment revealing weapon systems that matched no known configuration in galactic databases. It wasn't one ship. It was 17 autonomous combat drones that had been locked together in a modular configuration, their true nature hidden behind false sensor readings and physical camouflage. They moved with speed that violated Drekken's understanding of thrust-to-mass ratios, their coordination suggesting a single distributed intelligence. The first salvo destroyed 12 Kryn vessels before Drekken's crews could even acquire targeting locks. On the ground, the colony transformed with equal speed. Those agricultural workers in the fields weren't fleeing the bombardment. They were moving with military precision toward equipment that served purposes beyond farming. Construction mechs, massive machines designed for moving earth and building structures, reconfigured themselves into mobile weapons platforms. Their industrial lasers, legal for cutting rock and metal, proved devastatingly effective against Kryn armor at close range. The farmer who had served Drekken tea was coordinating a defensive perimeter with hand signals and encrypted communications. The young woman who'd smiled at him from a doorway was deploying mining charges, repurposed into precision explosives that took out a Kryn landing craft before it could discharge its troops. The elderly man tending crops was interfacing with agricultural drones, their sprayers filled with industrial acids that made Kryn exoskeletons smoke and dissolve. Drekken's tactical display became a chaos of red warning indicators. His ships in orbit were being systematically destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist on vessels that had been certified as unarmed. His ground forces were being annihilated by civilians using tools that were legal under every council statute. Civilian infrastructure. Chen's voice came through Drekken's communicator, calm and precise. Every piece of equipment, every system, every tool has legitimate civilian purposes. Mining lasers for excavation, chemical sprayers for agriculture, construction equipment for building, navigation systems for shipping. We never violated the treaty, we just made everything dual purpose. Drekken watched another of his ships die, torn apart by weapons that appeared from what sensors had read as cargo containers. You've been planning this. This is a military force disguised as colonists. No, Chen corrected. We're colonists who happen to have military training. Every human who volunteers for colony settlement receives it, takes about 6 months of their education. Not soldiers pretending to be civilians. Civilians who can fight if needed. More ships died. Drekken's fleet was disintegrating. The humans weren't just defending, they were winning. All ships full retreat, Drekken ordered. Emergency jump anywhere but here. But retreat proved almost as deadly as engagement. Those civilian trade ships throughout the system, the ones that had seemed so harmless, were converging from asteroid mining operations and orbital warehouses. They were unfolding too, revealing that humanity hadn't just hidden weapons on one vessel. They'd hidden them on everything. 63 Kryn ships escaped. Drekken's flagship was among them, though it limped through FTL with half its systems damaged. 137 ships remained at New Horizon, expanding debris clouds that would orbit Kepler 442f for centuries. The battle lasted 47 minutes. The Kryn survivors brought word back to Prime, Drekken's fortress world. The message was clear. Humans were not defenseless. Their colonies were traps. Their civilian vessels were warships in disguise. Avoid human space. Drekken faced a crisis that transcended military defeat. The Kryn Marauders' power had always rested on reputation. Species paid tribute not because Kryn could conquer them, but because everyone believed resistance was futile. If word spread that humans, supposedly disarmed by Council mandate, had destroyed a Kryn fleet, the Empire would collapse. Every tributary world would rebel. Every rival would sense weakness. 3 of Drekken's captains suggested withdrawal, repositioning, finding easier prey. Drekken executed all 3. The Kryn would not retreat. They would not show fear. Instead, Drekken assembled the largest fleet in Kryn history. He pulled ships from border patrol, from tribute collection, from every operation across 30 systems. 2,000 warships gathered at HFY Prime, a force that had never before been concentrated in one place. The target, Aurora Prime, humanity's most populous colony. 3 million humans living on a terraformed world that had been carefully shaped over 15 years. The jewel of human expansion. Drekken would broadcast the attack across every galactic channel. He would show the galaxy what happened when species resisted the Kryn, and he would show the Galactic Council that their restrictions on humanity had been meaningless. If anything, they'd given the Kryn a gift: wealthy, scattered human colonies that couldn't call for help from Earth's neutered navy. News of New Horizon reached the Galactic Council within hours. Emergency sessions were convened. Younger species expressed outrage at the Kryn attack. The elder species were more measured in their responses. Ambassador Vasquez requested immediate council intervention. She provided evidence of the attack, casualty reports, sensor logs showing Kryn vessels firing first. She invoked 3 different treaties that obligated council members to defend each other against pirate attacks. Lord Kethris listened with a patience that felt performative. When Alina finished, he consulted with the other elder species representatives in a privacy field that rendered their conversation inaudible to the rest of the chamber. The field dropped. Kethris spoke with careful formality. The Council recognizes the gravity of this attack. However, the Kryn Marauders are not Council members, and thus not subject to Council jurisdiction. The matter is complex. We will form an investigative committee to study the incident and recommend appropriate responses. Findings are expected in 6 to 8 months. Alina's jaw tightened. 6 to 8 months. Aurora Prime was under threat now. In the meantime, Kethris continued, Earth should avoid provocative actions that might escalate this conflict. The Council must consider all parties' perspectives. The subtext was clear to everyone in the chamber. The Council wouldn't help. Some of the elder species might even prefer the Kryn teach humanity a lesson about its place in the galactic order. Alina stood in her circle, suspended above the assembly, and something in her expression made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. She had worn that same unsettling calm 3 years ago when she'd accepted the compliance directive without protest. Then Earth will exercise our right to self-defense, Alina said quietly, within the bounds of Council law. Kethris's crystalline body refracted light in what might have been satisfaction. Of course. Though we trust Earth remembers the limitations of your defensive capabilities under the compliance directive. We remember everything, Alina replied. The Kryn fleet arrived at Aurora Prime with the pageantry of conquerors. 2,000 ships dropped out of FTL in perfect formation, their arrival synchronized for maximum psychological impact. They didn't immediately attack. Instead, Drekken broadcast his demands on every frequency, ensuring the message reached not just Aurora Prime but every listening post across the galaxy. Humans of Aurora Prime, you have seen what resistance costs. Your colony at New Horizon attacked Kryn forces without provocation. That aggression cannot stand. You will surrender all colony assets immediately. You will broadcast a message of submission across all human territories. You will acknowledge Kryn authority. Or 3 million of you will die, and your deaths will teach the galaxy what happens to species who forget their place. The colony's response came from an unexpected source. A teenage girl's voice, broadcast over civilian emergency channels, clear and steady despite her age. Warmaster Drekken, this is Maya Chen, Civilian Volunteer Coordinator for Aurora Prime. We've received your terms. Here's ours. Leave now or learn why Earth didn't need the Council's permission. Across the galaxy, beings watching the broadcast wondered at human insanity. A child was defying the Kryn Marauders. Maya Chen, Governor Marcus Chen's daughter, evacuated from New Horizon after the attack, was staring into a camera with her father's same unsettling calm. Drekken's rage was palpable in his response. "You dare! You attacked my home," Maya interrupted. "You killed my friends, and now you've come here thinking we're helpless because some old alien said we couldn't have warships. You're about to learn something important about humans. We don't need permission to survive." Drekken cut the transmission. "All ships attack pattern Omega. I want that colony burning within the hour." 2,000 Kryn vessels surged forward. They outnumbered the 30 human civilian ships in orbit by more than 60 to 1. The battle should have been over in minutes. Instead, it lasted 14 hours. The human ships didn't fight like military vessels. They didn't form battle lines or attempt to hold territory. They swarmed like insects, like a distributed organism with no centralized brain to target. Each vessel operated independently yet in perfect coordination, using the system's asteroids, the planet's ring system, and the gravity wells of 3 moons as weapons themselves. Every civilian satellite in Aurora Prime's orbital network revealed hidden purpose. Communications relays had point defense systems. Weather monitoring stations carried sensor scrambling equipment. The space stations weren't targets to avoid. They were traps that lured Kryn ships close before revealing weapons that violated no council law because they were technically industrial equipment repurposed in real time. The Kryn lost 300 ships in the first hour, not to superior firepower, but to tactics that seemed to anticipate every move. Human vessels would appear from asteroid shadow, strike, and vanish before return fire could connect. They used the planet's atmosphere to shed pursuit, diving to altitudes where Kryn ships couldn't follow without risking structural failure. Drekken watched his tactical display with growing horror. This wasn't a battle. It was an ambush that covered an entire solar system. Every element of the environment was being weaponized against him. Then human reinforcements arrived. They came from everywhere. From mining operations in neighboring systems, from trade routes across the sector, from colonies Drekken hadn't even known existed. Hundreds of civilian vessels dropped out of FTL, and every single one of them unfolded into something deadly. "How many ships do they have?" Drekken's tactical officer shouted over alarms. The answer came from an unexpected source. A transmission reached Drekken's flagship, audio-only female voice. "Every single one," the voice said. Maya Chen again, somehow patched into Kryn communications. "Every human ship is a warship if it needs to be. Every colony is a fortress. Every civilian is a soldier. You asked how many? All of us." Drekken finally understood the trap he'd flown into. Humanity hadn't built a military fleet in defiance of the Council. They'd done something far more dangerous. They'd built a civilization where military and civilian infrastructure were indistinguishable. Where every ship, every station, every tool and system served dual purposes. Where the entire population was both workforce and fighting force. The Council had banned human weapons, so humans made everything a weapon. The battle turned into a rout. Kryn ships, designed for overwhelming numerical superiority, found themselves outmaneuvered by vessels that fought with coordination, suggesting a hive mind. Later analysis would reveal the truth. Humanity's civilian AI network, billions of personal assistants and navigation systems, had been designed from the beginning to link together in emergencies. Not a military AI, which would violate Council restrictions. Just civilian emergency coordination software, scaled up. Maya Chen wasn't just a teenager on a broadcast. She was one of thousands of coordinators, most of them young people who'd grown up in the colony system, managing sections of the network while adults focused on direct combat operations. The younger generation handled logistics, communications, and tactical analysis with the casual competence of people who'd been training for this their entire lives. Drekken's fleet was dying. He'd lost over 800 ships. His remaining vessels were scattered across the system, desperately trying to regroup. And those human ships just kept coming, wave after wave of unfolding civilian vessels that revealed themselves as instruments of precise destruction. In desperation, Drekken made a final decision. He would ram his flagship into Aurora Prime's primary city. If he couldn't win, he would take millions of humans with him. Let the galaxy witness Kryn's determination. His ship broke from the battle, accelerating toward the planet. Human vessels moved to intercept but couldn't match his momentum. Drekken armed every weapon, set reactor overload, and aimed for the lights of 3 million humans sleeping in their homes. Then something appeared between his ship and the planet. A human vessel, broadcasting on all frequencies. It was a civilian transport, one of the large carriers that evacuated refugees and moved colonists between worlds. According to sensors, it carried 47 life signs. The transport positioned itself directly in Drekken's path and didn't move. "Mr. Drekken," a calm male voice came through, "I'm Captain Richard Torres of the transport vessel Hope's Journey. I have 47 volunteers aboard. If you want to reach that city, you'll have to go through us." Drekken's sensors confirmed it. 47 humans hovering in a civilian transport between him and his target. They couldn't stop his flagship. The collision would destroy them instantly and barely slow him down. But the galaxy was watching. Every channel was broadcasting this moment. "They're unarmed civilians," Drekken's tactical officer shouted. "If we kill them, every species will." "I know," Drekken roared. He saw the trap. If he killed obvious civilians in cold blood broadcast across the galaxy, even the Council couldn't ignore it. The Kryn would become pariahs. But if he veered away, if he showed mercy or hesitation, his own people would see weakness. The transport waited, its crew visible through observation windows. They weren't pleading or negotiating. They were simply there, standing between Drekken and 3 million lives. Drekken made his choice. He initiated evasive maneuvers, angling his flagship away from the planet. Human combat vessels, converging from across the system, tore his ship apart. Escape pods ejected automatically. Drekken found himself captured for the first time in 40 years of raiding. The Battle of Aurora Prime was over. The Kryn had lost 1,300 ships. Human casualties, 217 killed in action, all volunteers who'd known the risks. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The Battle of Aurora Prime had been broadcast across every civilized world. The implications were staggering. The Kryn Marauders, scourge of the galaxy for centuries, had been broken by a species the Council had specifically restricted from military development. Lord Kethris called the session to order with barely contained fury. "Ambassador Vasquez, the Council has reviewed extensive recordings of the engagement at Aurora Prime. We find troubling evidence that humanity has violated the compliance directive through systematic deception and military preparation." Alina stood in her circle, and this time she wasn't alone. Behind her, on secondary platforms, stood Governor Marcus Chen, Captain Richard Torres of the Hope's Journey, and Maya Chen, representing Aurora Prime's civilian population. "I welcome the Council's review," Alina said. "Please specify which terms of the compliance directive humanity has violated." Kethris gestured, and holographic displays showed human ships unfolding, revealing weapon systems. These vessels clearly possess military-grade weapons, far exceeding the permitted mining laser classifications. "Those are industrial tools," Alina replied calmly. "Cutting lasers for processing asteroids, plasma torches for ship repair, particle accelerators for scientific research. Every system has legitimate civilian purposes and falls within permitted specifications. We have submitted complete technical documentation for every piece of equipment, but they were used in military operations. They were used in self-defense against an unprovoked attack that the Council declined to prevent or respond to," Alina corrected. "The compliance directive restricts military vessels and weapons. It says nothing about the defensive use of civilian equipment." Another display showed the coordination of human forces. This level of tactical coordination requires military command infrastructure. "That's a civilian emergency response network," Maya Chen spoke up, her young voice clear in the vast chamber. "Every colony has them for coordinating disaster relief, search and rescue, medical emergencies. The network uses our personal devices and civilian AI assistants. There's no military chain of command. During the attack, I was coordinating communications for my district. I'm 16, I'm not a soldier. But you have military training, a TechResh delegate accused. I have emergency preparedness education, Maya corrected. I know first aid, basic navigation, how to operate safety equipment, and yes, personal defense. Every human child learns this. It's part of our standard curriculum. Kethris pulled up records of human military vessel decommissioning. You claim to disarm completely, yet you fielded hundreds of combat-capable ships. We decommissioned our military fleet as ordered, Alina replied. Those 50 system defense vessels are still in Sol's system, as mandated. Every other ship you saw at Aurora Prime is registered as civilian. They passed council inspections. If those civilian vessels proved effective in self-defense, that speaks to human engineering and training, not treaty violations. The debate continued for hours. The council brought forth expert after expert, trying to prove humanity had deceived them. Alina countered each accusation with legal documentation, technical specifications, and records of compliance with every inspection. The truth became undeniable. Humanity had followed the letter of the compliance directive perfectly. They had simply redefined what civilian infrastructure could be. Every ship, every tool, every system had legitimate non-military purposes. The fact that humans could repurpose everything for defense wasn't a violation. It was adaptation. The younger species delegates watched with rapt attention. If humanity's approach was legal, the precedent was set. Any species could do the same thing. The elder species' monopoly on military force, their ability to restrict potential rivals through arms limitations, suddenly looked vulnerable. Finally, after 3 days of deliberation, the council rendered its verdict. Lord Kethris delivered it with barely controlled rage. The council finds that humanity has not technically violated the terms of the compliance directive. However, we note that the spirit of the agreement, the spirit, Alina interrupted, her tone sharp for the first time. The compliance directive was designed to humiliate Earth, to make us dependent on council protection, to limit our expansion by making us vulnerable. Don't pretend it was about galactic peace, it was about control. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke to the elder species that way. Alina continued, her voice carrying to every delegate. Earth accepted your terms because we believe in following rules, but we also believe in survival. You wanted us disarmed. We disarmed. You assumed that meant we'd be helpless. That assumption was yours, not ours. She gestured to Marcus Chen, to Captain Tors, to Maya. Humans learned something a long time ago, back when we were confined to one planet fighting each other. The difference between a soldier and a civilian is just training and mindset. Change both, and everyone becomes a potential defender. You didn't weaken us by restricting our military. You forced us to ensure every single human, everywhere, could defend themselves. You didn't limit our strength. You distributed it so widely we became impossible to defeat. Kethris had no response. The legal ruling stood, no violation, but the political implications were vast. The Kryn Marauders, broken by humanity's defense, were already seeing tributary worlds rebel. Other young species were quietly requesting human consultants for civilian infrastructure development. The old order was shifting. 3 months later, Ambassador Vasquez returned to Earth for the first time since taking her council position. She met with the architects of humanity's distributed defense strategy in a secure facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The room held a mix of former military officers, civilian engineers, sociologists, and AI specialists. They had designed this system together, across years of careful planning. Final casualty reports from both attacks, the security chief reported. 4,217 humans killed, New Horizon and Aurora Prime combined. The room observed a moment of silence. Each name was recorded in the memorial database. Each loss was felt. The council's investigation is officially closed, Alina said. We're clear of all charges, but the real question remains. What happens now? At least a dozen species have contacted us about adopting similar systems. If everyone follows our model, the galaxy's power structure changes completely. A sociologist spoke up. That was always the goal, wasn't it? Not just to defend ourselves, but to show others they could defend themselves too. The elder species maintained control by limiting everyone else's military capacity. We just proved those limitations are meaningless if your entire civilization becomes defensive infrastructure. The Kryn situation is resolving, the military liaison reported. Their remaining leadership sued for peace, formally pledged never to enter human space. Their empire is fracturing. Tributary worlds are declaring independence. Good, Alina said. The Kryn were everyone's problem. The council wouldn't solve it. We did, that matters. She looked around the room at the people who'd helped transform humanity's greatest weakness into its greatest strength. We bought ourselves survival. More importantly, we bought ourselves respect. The council can't restrict us the way they did before, not when every restriction we followed became an advantage. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Battle of Aurora Prime had become legendary, the moment when a supposedly defenseless species demonstrated that weapons didn't make a military, people did. On Aurora Prime, Maya Chen recorded a message for the Galactic Education Network. She sat in a rebuilt section of the colony, construction drones visible through windows behind her. People ask me what it's like growing up in human colonies, she said to the camera. They want to know if we're raised as soldiers. We're not. We're raised to be complete people. We learn agriculture so we can feed ourselves, engineering so we can build our homes, medicine so we can heal our sick, navigation so we can explore, and yes, defense so we can protect what we've built. She paused, choosing words carefully. My generation doesn't remember Earth. We were born among the stars. And we've learned something important. Nobody gives you safety. Nobody grants you security. You build it yourself with your own hands, with your own skills. We're not warriors pretending to be civilians. We're civilians who refuse to be victims. The message spread across the galactic network, viewed by billions. It resonated especially with younger species, those who'd accepted elder species restrictions without realizing they had alternatives. In a port on Tekresh 7, a human trading vessel requested docking clearance. The Tekresh Port Authority, still nervous after recent events, checked and rechecked their scanner readings. "Human vessel Wandering Star, are you carrying weapons?" the controller asked. The human captain, a woman named Sarah Kim, responded with cheerful professionalism. "Negative, control. We're hauling agricultural equipment, mining supplies, and construction materials. Standard civilian cargo. You have our manifest." There was a long pause while the Tekresh verified every item. The scanners showed exactly what the manifest claimed: civilian equipment, all within legal parameters. "You're cleared to dock, Wandering Star. Welcome to Tekresh 7. Appreciate the hospitality, control. Looking forward to doing business." The vessel approached the station, its modular cargo configuration shifting slightly as internal systems performed routine diagnostics. The Tekresh controllers watched it dock, and several of them wondered the same thing. If that ship needed to defend itself, how long would the transformation take? They didn't ask. Some questions were better left unanswered. The cargo hauler docked smoothly, and Sarah Kim disembarked to meet her Tekresh clients. Business as usual in a galaxy that was still learning what humanity's compliance really meant. Somewhere in Council space, Lord Kethris watched reports of human trade expanding, human colonies thriving, and human influence growing. He had tried to limit them, and instead had created something more dangerous than a military. A people who couldn't be conquered because everyone was the military, and the military was everyone. The Galactic Council would adapt, of course. New regulations would be proposed. Other species would copy human strategies. The balance of power would shift and settle into new configurations. That was the nature of civilization. But one truth remained, understood now by every species in the galaxy. Humanity had been given a choice between accepting weakness and finding strength. They had chosen adaptation, and in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy of something ancient and fundamental. The most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the biggest weapons. It's the one who refuses to surrender, no matter what you take from them. The age of human compliance was over. The age of human self-reliance had begun, and the galaxy was still learning what that meant.